Here we go. Welcome everyone to what I know is going to be an epic conversation. I don't know where we're going. Lori knows where we're going. So maybe Lori doesn't even know where we're going. Most of the time, my students, we just let the channel flow. So we are going to be talking about grief, karmic astrology, grace, these are Lori's words. If I have words that I associate with people, these are some of the words like Lori is those things for me when I see her, when I work with her. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to her magic and really, expand whatever we're meant to expand today. So Lori, welcome. I'm going to unmute you. Give you 1 second here. Okay, that should let you. Yay, there we go. And I'm going to pop you in here. And hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited that you're here with me. And you look like you're at home today. So this is perfect.
And I will say, please excuse any noise. Of course, the landscapers are right outside my window.
Always.
The leaf blower. I'm like, really right now. Go away.
Every time, every single time. So honestly, when mine are outside my window and they're like right there, no one can seem to hear it. So we probably won't hear much. So
I hope not.
But we'll all make it through, right? Like this is real life here. We are all experiencing real life. So, okay. The chat is open for this conversation, guys. So I love when you guys share. I know Lori's going to love when you guys share. So I'm sure Lori will prompt you to think of things. Well, I know Lori will prompt you to think of things that might come through. If you want to share them, you're like, oh my God, that's me. Any resonances, put them in the chat. I'm going to say, leave big questions till the end, just so Lori can stay in the channel and stay like where she's meant to be. And then at the end, we'll leave space for any big questions that want to come through. I know as we flow here, more people will start to funnel in. So, if that doesn't go 100% according to plan, at least you guys know, leave big questions to the end and we will make space for those to come through. Okay. Okay. So are you ready, Lori?
I'm ready.
Ready. Okay. So to start, you did It's Karmic with me last year in 2022. Was it the fall? Yeah, it was the fall of 2022. Okay. So I want to just ask this question to everyone who joins, who's teaching through this week. What was the biggest thing you found inside of the It's Karmic certification?
Oh my gosh. Everything. Really the new level of awareness and understanding that I now have for myself and for other people. So instead of expecting someone else, even if it's subconsciously, expecting someone else to think or feel or behave the way that I do, I let go of so much of that because I now have a deeper understanding about why everyone acts and behaves and says and does and believes all the things that they do, because we are so unique. And that was probably the biggest thing that I learned from It's Karmic, along with everything else, everything, all the magic, all the goodness.
Well, I love that because ditto, right? There's a lot more acceptance of people as they are, because it's almost like we can look at them and be like, this is just your karmic path, your lessons. And we stop trying to fix people or heal people. We just let them do their thing, right? And process as they are meant to. So thank you for sharing that, because that's really, really potent. And I feel like that's going to hit for a lot of people who, when we're on this path, we start, depending on how long you've been on the path of healing, we start and we want to fix everyone around us. Right? We want to share with them everything we know now and how life can be better and like you can feel better and you can be happier, but some people don't want to come on that ride with us. Yeah.
No, but looking at them from a soul perspective brings so much compassion, so much more compassion to people and to their journeys, because we don't know all of our past, let alone someone else's. So whatever brought you to where you are now, or whatever brought someone else to where they are now, I have a different level of respect for that and a different level of honoring than I did before.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
But in saying that, it isn't always easy. I mean, you know, some things that I've gone through this year that I'm still going through with someone very, very close to me, and constantly reminding myself his soul chose these experiences and is on its own path. And I, like you say, I cannot fix it for him.
Yeah.
He has to do it himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can be so, so difficult, especially when it is, you know, a spouse or a child or someone that you deeply, dearly love. It's really challenging.
Absolutely. And that resonates for me. I'm sure that resonates for anyone listening. There's people in my life that, yeah, like deep soul love for them, you know, mothers, sisters, brothers, people, and just accepting them and their soul contracts and their journey and just leading with love. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love this so much. So thank you for sharing that. And I know that grace is just going to carry through our conversation today. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's dive in. Everybody, you know, if you're taking notes, get out your notebooks. If not, there'll be a replay. So just sit back if you feel called to. Lori, take the floor.
You know, as you were talking, I have nothing prepared, so I don't know what's going to come through. But as you were talking just now, a word came through that I want everybody to write down and remember, regardless of what else I say. And it's the word surrender, because that is, at the end of the day, what it's all about. Everything we've already talked about, it's about surrender, surrendering to yourself and surrendering to someone else's path, their soul agreements, their soul contracts. So that kind of is a nice little segue, which again, I didn't plan, but into talking about soul agreements and soul contracts, which is a concept that I did not have. It was not even in my awareness until several years ago. I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. And I was raised in a traditional Catholic home, went to Catholic church, and we weren't taught those kind of things. There was no conversation about that. And so learning about this shifted so much within me, and again, led to that heightened level of awareness and compassion for everyone, even if I don't agree with them, even if I don't like what they do or say. It's like, okay, you are on your own journey. And for whatever reason, we had some kind of an agreement or contract, whether it's to have a deep connection in this lifetime or a passing connection in this lifetime. So, I mean, something as simple as someone cutting you off in traffic. And I am horrible at getting annoyed in traffic. It is not my jam. I grew up in Los Angeles. Traffic is just, you know, it's like one of my, I don't want anything to do with it. So if someone cuts you off in traffic, it's like, okay, let's pause. And am I in a hurry? Am I being impatient? Am I, whatever it is, there's some reason that that person crossed my path at that exact point in time for me to reflect on. Now, we're not going to do that all the time, certainly. But when you do, when you catch yourself, if you can just ask yourself, get curious. Curiosity is another really good word that has shifted so much for me and for my clients. Instead of, it takes you out of judgment. And instead of judging someone, if you get curious, I wonder why they did that. I wonder why they believe that. I wonder why they said that. I wonder what in their past brought them to this place. It doesn't mean you have to accept what they're doing. It's more about, again, being curious. And then if you are meant to continue interacting with them, great. If not, move on, set boundaries and move on. But so as Vika said, grief is something I am extremely familiar with. I lost a son 4.5 years ago, very unexpectedly. And having the understanding of soul contracts before that happened helped me process that. I had no idea that was coming. It doesn't make the human experience any less painful, any less devastating, any less anything. But finding some kind of balance and harmony between the spiritual understanding and the human experience helps when you're in those deep, deep layers of grief, and we all go through them. Whatever it is that happens to you or that has happened to you, you're going to experience these profound levels of grief. And having an understanding through karmic astrology of those soul contracts, of why I might be having certain experiences at the time I'm having them, can help satisfy and quiet the human mind that wants to spin out of control and say, oh my God, the world is ending. Yeah, you lose a child, you think your life is over with at times. You just do. And yet, if you can allow yourself to go on a quest for a deeper layer, a deeper level of understanding, and for finding the magic in life after trauma, after loss, in the midst of trauma and loss, in the midst of life's most challenging experiences, because again, we all have them. Yours might be different than mine, but it doesn't mean that yours is any less challenging, less painful than mine was or is. I don't like to compare grief stories. That is something that does not serve anyone. So I honor everyone's path and journey, but finding the clues in our birth charts, whether it's through a planetary placement in the birth chart or a transit that's going on right now. I mean, Vika knows Pluto is kicking my butt right now, bouncing between, Capricorn and Aquarius, because I have my Mercury at 29 degrees of Capricorn and my sun is at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So Pluto's just having a field day with me right now. So having that understanding and being able to put that in context with the experiences I'm having this year helps me stay out of falling into the victim mode of, oh, poor me, because it is so easy to go into that space. Do I do that at times? Absolutely, because I'm human. But I also then remember, oh, wait a minute, for whatever crazy reason, my soul chose this. And so how am I going to navigate this at this moment in time and then use it going forward to help myself and those around me? I believe from my experience and the charts that I've read and my work with Vika, that our souls choose the exact moment of our birth based on where the planets are for our soul's evolution and growth. It's part of the contracts, and every single person that we're connected to in this life, it's like we all have this meeting while we're still in spirit and say, okay, we want to have this experience. So I'm going to play this part and you're going to play that part. And this is going to happen at this moment in time. And the planets need to be in these places so that it all comes together the way it's meant to for us to have these experiences. Again, at the time you're going through them, it sucks. If you would have tried to explain this to me on January 6th of 2019, I probably would have had some really bad words to say to you. And yet at the same time, even though I didn't have the astrology understanding at the time, I remember standing in my older son's kitchen that day and I said, I know that Greg is still here with us and I will see him again. The spiritual part of me understands that. The mom in me is shattered in a bazillion pieces on the floor right now. How do I pick those pieces up again? And with all the cracks, because they'll never go back together the same way again, because there's a piece that's gone from this physical life forever. But how do I put what's left back together again in a way that creates a legacy for myself, for Greg, and for my older son and his children, and for those that are in my life, whether they are friends, family, clients, anybody who is looking to heal, whether they realize it or not. And so I love that. I love the way you have this lined up, because I listened to your presentation from Monday and you talked a lot about choice. And I truly believe that healing is a choice. It's a choice that I have to make every single day, sometimes multiple times throughout the day. Sometimes I choose to sit on my sofa and watch Netflix and not care about anything. And that's okay. That's okay, because we cannot and should not be working on our healing 24/7. That's not healthy either. It's a form of spiritual bypassing that I see quite frequently in the bereaved mothers group of of women that I work with, which is understandable. We want to connect with our child or other loved ones in spirit. That's normal. But we're still here in this life, in this body. And so what are you going to do with it? Whether you were sexually or physically abused or emotionally abused as a child, or as a young girl, or as an adult, as a young, man, or whatever it is, we all have these experiences that we go through, whether they are from our past in this life or our past lives, or through our DNA, through our ancestors. So we're carrying a lot of trauma and loss. And being able to look at our chart and see where things like the South Node are and the North Node, what are we bringing with us from our past to use as gifts as we move forward? I know Jess talked so much yesterday about the North Node and the South Node. So what are you bringing with you through your South Node placement to use as you move toward your North Node, your guiding light, your North Star? There's so many different things in the chart. There's where Saturn is, there's where the sun is, the moon, all of it. It all plays a part. Uranus loves to play with me too. And Vika knows one of the things I love to do is go back and look at the transits that were happening at the time particular experiences occurred. And it helps the human mind make sense of the unexplainable. My son just being gone like that, I will never as a human be able to rationalize that or wrap my mind around it. Looking at my chart on the day that happened, just one quick example, Saturn was in the exact same spot, down to the exact same degree as it was when I was born. You can't make that up. Pluto was conjunct Saturn on that day. Again, you cannot make that up. So I can put that experience in a different light, in a different context, and I still cannot find, when Vika and I talked about it, we figured out, because one of the questions I had, we all have questions about our experiences, right? So again, I love to use examples to explain things. And so from the time Greg left, I was trying to figure out, okay, either my soul wanted the experience of losing a child before me and then living that out, or his soul agreed to be that child, or his soul wanted to have a shorter life and my soul, for whatever reason, agreed to be the mom. And we found something in looking at his chart and my chart that showed that it was my soul that wanted to have the experience of him leaving, and his soul agreed to be the one that would leave so that I could live out my purpose. And that's where you find your legacy. And then it's up to you. Do you live that legacy, or do you just ignore it? And for me, that's not an option, because I don't want to repeat this. I believe that I've lost children in past lives, and I didn't fulfill my legacy, which is why I came back to do it again, especially late in life. I was 59. I was like 2 weeks away from being 59 when he left. And so, you get through the infant stage and the toddler stage and the elementary, all of it, you raise them. And at some point it's like, okay. They're off living their lives. We're good, until you're not. And so I thought I was good. I thought that it was all okay. And then this happened. And so what am I going to do with it? Well, I could choose to be the victim. Nobody would blame me in losing a child. To me, if there's something worse than this, I don't want to know what it is. So whatever your worst experience is your worst experience. Do you want to let yourself remain the victim, or do you want to find your legacy in that trauma, in whatever it was, in a loss, and then live it so that you don't have to repeat that in a future life? Because I have to believe that, no, I know. And there's a difference between believing and knowing. We can change our beliefs, but I have this deep inner knowing that if I see this through to whatever it is, whatever it takes to complete this, then I won't have to come back here and do this again. And it's because I have this level of awareness now that I believe I didn't have in previous lives. Now, my South Node is in Pisces, so I did have a lot of intuitive gifts, psychic gifts, all of that However, I didn't use them to see this through in those lifetimes, which is why I've done this again. So if I can live my legacy through this trauma, through his loss, and finding different things in my chart to help do that has been so illuminating for me and so healing. And helping other people do that has been, I mean, it's like you find the magic in your chart, and you find the magic in your traumas through your chart in ways that I hadn't found. And I'm sure that if you're on this summit, if you're listening to it, you have explored other metaphysical things like I did. I mean, I've taken certifications and trainings in so many things, and none of it prepared me or helped me understand his leaving like this has. A lot of it helped me understand from a spiritual level that, yeah, he's okay and I'll see him again. But to understand how I got to that place, karmic astrology is what showed me that path. What else? What else? The other thing that is coming through to be shared is having this deeper level of understanding for myself and for other people helps me choose not to react, but rather to respond to other people and to life's events and circumstances and experiences. Because I used to live in a reactionary space, and it wasn't healthy. It wasn't always kind or compassionate. Or what I usually did was I would hold things in because I don't like to be outwardly mean to people. I'm like the pot on the stove that is on the slow simmer and the top's on it, and all of a sudden it just poof, erupts because the steam has been held in for too long. That was me. And so I don't do that anymore. I've learned how to respond from, again, a place of compassion and curiosity. In saying that, I'm not going to be a doormat. That allows me to forgive other people for things they may have said or done, and yet set really strong boundaries. And sometimes that means not having contact with someone anymore, or having contact on my terms in ways that work for me, and not, what's the word? Not exposing myself to whatever it is that they said or did in the future, because I'm doing it on my terms. And so, and with Venus in retrograde right now, it's a really good time to look at your relationships. And are you in relationships that are serving you and that are healthy and that are uplifting you, or not? And if you're not, look at whether you need to, it's a time to reevaluate those. Is it a relationship that you need to release, or is it a relationship that needs to be revised? And again, you can still have some kind of contact with that person, but on your terms. Or can you work through whatever it was without being a doormat, without letting them continue whatever it is that that does not feel right for you? It can be a hard thing to do, especially with some placements, as we know. And yet it's the healthiest and most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them. And then you look at, okay, what did our souls agree to that we're in this relationship together like this? What is it in this? Well, I know for me with someone recently, I will have to continue to have a relationship with this person. And what it's taught me is to set boundaries in a loving way, but to limit the contact we have and to not respond. I've set very strong parameters on, I will talk to you about this, and that's it. And if the other person deviates from that, I don't respond. I'm not going to get caught up in the drama, because drama's an energy, and we can stop it. We can shut it down when we set the boundaries in a loving way. And it's not a boundary you even have to say to anyone. You can do it energetically. But I have said to this person, I will only talk to you about this. And when this person starts talking about something else, I just don't respond. And eventually, I've been a paralegal in family law for over 30 years. So divorce, custody, all of that. And I've always told clients, if the other person, if you're, husband or wife, tries to engage you in something that you don't want to, talk about or what have you, you don't have to respond to them. It's like a football game or a baseball game. If only one team shows up, there's not going to be a game. You're the one that doesn't show up. If you're not available, and that's a really good question to journal on, is, what am I available for? I'm no longer available for the drama that this person has brought to my life for 4.5, 5 years. I'm done. Again, I've set the parameter on what I will communicate about. If it's anything other than that, I'm not communicating. And so it's kind of like the ultimate, for me, one of the most beautiful things about learning about the birth chart is it is to me, the ultimate tool in empowerment, in self-empowerment. And again, having that level of understanding of, okay, what's my legacy? And how am I going to live that? Because I don't want to leave a legacy. I want to live a legacy that then people will remember me for. So what legacy are you leaving by the way you're living right now? And that empowers you to heal, to do the self-growth work, the self-development work, whatever you're interested in, follow that path. And there are clues in the birth chart of your gifts, of your talents, of what can help you heal and move forward on your path. Whatever experiences you have had, and there are people who have been through traumas throughout their lives. I did not have that. I had a really good life, a really beautiful life when I was a child growing up, a very loving family. Was it perfect? No, but all things considered, there was no abuse. There was no, none of that. All of my pain and suffering before Greg left this life was, I call it self-inflicted. Mainly through relationships. I chose relationships I shouldn't have chosen. I consider that to be self-inflicted. I look back now and look at those in a different light as far as growth opportunities. We don't consciously choose the experiences we have. And yet, I didn't choose for me to get that phone call on a Sunday morning saying, Greg's dead. You don't choose that, not on a conscious level. My soul did. And so going back to what Vika and I found in the charts about my soul wanted to be the one to have this experience and Greg's soul agreed to be the child. I can't let his life have been in vain and his leaving have been in vain. And I would not have received the answer to that question without karmic astrology, because I had been, I'll use the word struggling with that question since the day he left. And I finally had some resolution to it. So now I feel that is my legacy, to help other people. And it might not, that's not for everybody, and that's fine. It might be for you to revisit something you were interested in as a child that you've let go of. And whatever your trauma or loss or awakening event is leading you back to living the fullness of who you are as a soul. I don't know why, but horseback riding is coming up. And I'm not a horseback rider, so I don't know why that's coming through, but it's a good example that maybe you loved to ride horses as a child and you stopped. And all of a sudden you go back to that and you find some healing in that experience. It could be a multitude of things. There are so many different examples of ways we can heal that we find through our birth chart. And that has been such a blessing for me and so healing for me. And so, yes, my legacy is to help other women heal from trauma and loss. And I don't think I would have done that in this way if Greg, I know I wouldn't have, if Greg was still here. And I would obviously give anything for my child to still be here, but I can't I can't undo that. He's gone. So what am I going to do with it? Again, then it circles back to choice. I have the choice. And actually, I saw something this morning. It was on my Facebook memories. And so I took a screenshot of it because it was perfect for this conversation. It says, one of the greatest choices we have is whether our suffering will make us a victim or a warrior. And I do see women, especially bereaved mothers, who become alcoholics. They become dependent on prescription drugs. They cannot function in their lives anymore. Part of me understands that. And yet that hurts my heart and my soul, because I know I do not believe that anyone is here to live a life of suffering. We have events where we do suffer. But what is that old Buddhist saying? Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And so at some point, you have to choose to step out of the suffering and to take the lessons and the experiences and turn them into gifts. And again, go back to your chart. That's where you're going to find the gifts. But only you can do that. I've worked with women who, on one level, say they want to heal, but they're not ready yet. And that's okay. I honor that. I totally honor that. But when you're ready, there are tools to help you. And I honestly do not know where I would be right now without karmic astrology. I started getting interested in astrology probably, I think it was 3 years ago. It was it was shortly after I started or maybe before that, but it was around the time I started my podcast. And something called me to it. And that's another thing, whatever you're curious about, follow that, because you don't know where it's going to lead. I did so many things I left my marriage at the end of 2008, or the beginning of 2008. And Greg left at the beginning of 2019. So in a 10-year span, I did things I never envisioned myself doing, but everything I was curious about, I would follow. Some things I continued to pursue and learn about, other things I didn't. But I said yes to so many things. All of that led me to create a foundation that I had that I didn't know I was going to need. And then again, following what I was curious about. And it's amazing how on social media, because I had to have found you on Instagram, it's amazing how social media will keep popping things up in your feed that are things you might be a little bit curious about. And all of a sudden you see them over, and you might not even like or interact or comment on, but it's like there's this energetic algorithm that causes things to continue to appear. And it's like, okay, I'm going to explore that. And that's what it's about, is exploring things. And again, some things will resonate at deeper levels and you will go deeper with them and further with them. Others won't. That's okay. It's all part of the journey. Just don't allow yourself to get stuck.
So much juicy goodness there. Oh my God. Okay. So there's so much. There was one point where you were talking about those soul contracts, and it made me think a lot about, I know what's going on in your life. And then I'm just thinking about the contracts we make with people that we can't necessarily remove from our life. So I'm thinking like family or people who come into our extended family. So I have some within my own life too, that we can't necessarily remove them, right? Because there is a reason, maybe they're intertwined with, for me, my stepmother comes to mind. I cannot remove her. She is, intertwined with my father, nor would I want to. He loves her to death. They're very happy. But it's a relationship that isn't healthy for me. So I'm thinking about how many people are probably resonating in how there are people in our lives that we can't physically remove and say, okay, we're done, cuts the cord, right? But how you can find a healthy contract, or like a healthy relationship within the contract there. Like, do you know what I mean? And I'm wondering if you could just expand on that a little bit for the people who are sitting there being like, yeah, there's people I can't get rid of, but they have to be there. But how can I create, or how can I even tap into what is the soul contract I'm learning through this soul?
I mean, I think a lot of it is what I mentioned earlier, that looking at your chart to see what it is that you're being. So for me with this person, and it is an extended family member that I kind of like you with your stepmother, I cannot just cut this person out of my life. But looking at where my moon is and where Pluto currently is. So for me, the lesson right now, the learning, the agreement that this person and I must have is for me to be able to speak up and set a boundary in a kind and loving way. And so again, going back to the chart and the placements in your chart and then the transits to see, okay, what's going on right now that I can somehow continue to have this. It's almost like you're coexisting, but on your terms. And you can also do a ritual where you can either write this person a letter, you don't send it, you burn it, you tear it up and bury it, you whatever you do with it, but you write this person a letter releasing them. And then again, what am I available for? I'm no longer available for the drama that this person has created in my life for 4.5, 5, 6 years. Another question to ask yourself is, what are you choosing? For me, for a long time, I didn't realize I was choosing to get caught up in the drama. And so I no longer choose to do that because we can't change anyone else. And we all know that on some level, but it's this, you need a reminder that you cannot change anyone else. All you can do is change yourself. Well, even changing yourself energetically can change the dynamic of a relationship. If you, again, do need to continue to be in some kind of a relationship with that person. Now, what do you do? What do I do when the holidays come around? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that right now. That's something I'm going to have to navigate. But having set that boundary helps me be able to not be engaged with that person's energy so that I can, another thing too is being able to look at things from an observer point of view. And I do this a lot with my clients when I take them through past life regression experiences, where I ask them to remove themselves from being the person and just be an observer so that they're not caught up in the emotion of whatever the experience was that they're looking at in the regression. And so it's the same, we can do the same thing with anything and just step back and be the observer and say, okay, what part am I playing in this? And how can I shift that within myself? Because I can't change the other person, but I sure can change myself.
Yeah, love that. I love that. That's so potent. Okay. So beyond that, is there places, you could suggest for our listeners to start questioning things in their own chart? Maybe one placement where they can kind of start to ask questions about their own soul contracts, not necessarily with other people, but even just their soul contracts here on Earth.
The first place that comes to mind is the South Node. Okay. Because what is it from your past lives that you're bringing with you that are your gifts that are here to enhance your life in this lifetime, but not stay stuck in that place? Use those gifts moving forward. It's like when we're in school. Okay, when I was in school, I loved French class. I loved speaking French. I'm not in that class anymore. How can I use that going forward? So if I just continued to study and never do anything with it, then I'm not utilizing that gift that I have. Same thing with learning Karmic Astrology. If I just kept it to myself, then I'm not using it to help anybody else. And so what are your gifts that your South Node brings you that you can use moving toward your North Node? And I mean, Jess did a great job of explaining each of the different 6 axes, however you say it, to give you some insight into the gifts and the from the South Node, and then the guideposts for the North Node.
Yeah, love that. Love that. The South Node and North Node was actually what started me on my journey. So always a big resonance when we can start there and just know, yeah, like, where did we come from? What did we bring with us? Bring in all the mastery, leave behind all the like overly comfort zones, and step into wherever we're meant to go, right?
The other thing that that I love to look at is Chiron and where Chiron is, because that gives us such insight into the wounding that we're here to heal. And for me, Chiron is in Aquarius. And so what in the third house of communication. And so what is it that I'm meant to heal? Well, I started a podcast just over 3 years ago called Grief with Grace. Started out for grieving moms. It quickly expanded beyond that. I've got men who listen. I have women who aren't even mothers, let alone bereaved mothers. So it's really for women healing from trauma and loss. But I didn't know at the time that by me doing this podcast is helping me heal that Chiron placement in the third house by speaking very vulnerably. I mean, and I was always the kid in school, in class that I would never raise my hand because I was so afraid of being wrong. I usually knew the right answer, but just the fear of being wrong and looking stupid in front of people. Well, I've certainly gotten over that because I flub up on my podcast frequently. And it's like, you know what? Okay. It's okay. I'm not going to go back and redo it. And so just that one thing, again, without even knowing anything about astrology when I started the podcast, that's why I love Chiron. It holds so much wisdom and information for us on our healing journeys.
So would you say, if you follow what do they call it? The niggle? Do they call it the niggle? Like, if you follow the voice telling you to do something, right? Even if it doesn't make sense or it scares you or it's weird or out of your comfort zone, that you are going to find keys to your soul contract there. And then those might resonate when you go into your birth chart after. I guess you could do one or the other, but would you say that makes sense?
Yes. And the other thing that I do is I do Akashic Records work. And it is amazing to me because when I do Akashic Records work, I call it a soul profile. And I'm able to go into your Akashic Records and find out the energy your soul is made of and the energy where your soul originated. And then I look at your birth chart. It's amazing to me how often the synergy between the two. It blows my mind what I find when I combine the two. There is such a through line and a thread between them, and it validates each one. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And there is this, I don't remember what astrologers I was listening to. I think it was Stephen Forrest and Robert Hannon. They were speaking how whether it's astrology, human design, numerology, this, that, the Akashic Records, it's all a language for the same thing. And that's why they all repeat the same, message over and over and over, because you're just grabbing a different language and using it to decode that which we cannot see or naturally understand in our humanness. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And each one of those is something you have to grow into. You're not going to understand it in the beginning. There's so many layers to each one of those modalities, but each one does hold keys that are so similar that you cannot ignore the truth of them. It's mind-blowing how validating each one can be if you're open to it. Now, there are some people who aren't and who just, blow it off, and that's okay. That's their path. I'm not going to judge that. But the people who are open, I'm there for that all day long.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you're saying that, because I'm even thinking of the comparison between Vedic astrology and between tropical, and how every single time, no matter which one I look at, the repeated signatures will come through in both different styles of the sky, literally. Even though, all your placements move back in Vedic astrology, it's still going to tell the same damn story in another way. So I love this so much, and that we can find these little pieces of the puzzle, and just, unlock things we might feel, doors that might felt locked, or things we didn't quite understand, but we felt that soul call to go towards. And that's like part of the contract there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, finding what works for you can be very simple, not easy, but simple. If you're open to it, and narrowing it down for people so that their rational mind, their human mind can absorb it and make sense of it, I think is key. Because I know that in the past, before I studied this, people were talking above my head. And so it's like, okay, and then of course there's like the daily horoscope in the newspaper, which is a whole other, topic. And that's why I did not put a lot of stock in astrology until the last several years. And I clearly wasn't ready for it until then, because I also believe that we come to a level of understanding with things when we are ready. But I also think that if we can simplify it for people in the beginning, so that they can easily see themselves in it and see their experiences and how their experiences connect through their birth chart, through just a few placements, then they're open to more detail, more depth, more, more going into the dark spaces, right? The 12th house, Scorpio, all those potent, and I mean, so many others, but going into those places that in the beginning, a lot of people are too afraid to go to, and that's okay. You start simply and then work your way through, so that it's almost like building a house. You have to have a strong foundation before you start putting up walls. If you just start putting up walls with nothing to support them, it's going to fall down.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I love this so much. We had a couple questions come through, so we'll start our little Q&A here. So as you guys are listening, feel free to pop comments or questions in for Lori that are, related to the topic, and she can really speak on for you guys anything that came through. But I will say there was one question about what does your moon and Pluto current position tell us. So I will just say quickly for Lori, that one's actually a particular transit Lori's going through, where Pluto is exactly square her moon for, I think, almost the last time. So that one is particularly a personal transit that Lori is going through right now. So that one we can kind of leave off, but there is information within those. So I don't know if you want to speak on that any more than that.
Well, the moon placement is always important, because it tells us about our emotional needs and what we require to feel safe emotionally. And so we can be in the low expression of that or the high expression of it. I've been in the low, my moon is in Libra, so I'm the peacekeeper. I don't like conflict. So that's why I didn't have good boundaries most of my life, because I would just let people do whatever they wanted to do at my expense, and I wouldn't say anything. So learning to set boundaries is so important for my Libra moon to feel safe. I never understood why I didn't feel safe before emotionally. And so now that's just one example, but wherever your moon is, it's going to tell you what you require to feel safe and to be able to set the boundaries that you need to set. It's going to be different for everybody. If your moon's in Aries, it's going to be completely different.
Yeah, agreed completely. My Leo moon, in realizing what she needs, oh my goodness, that was life-changing for me. It made everything make sense about my own personal boundaries, my whole life, and my own over emotionality, and why I am the Disney princess, dramatically like throwing herself on the bed. Like that was always me. And that never made sense until I saw that. And I was like, oh, like there she is. Right. And I was able to cultivate that safety, but knowing that that's part of my soul contract was really big. So I love that, that particular. So guys, look to your moon and, question your boundaries, your unmet needs, what's going on there. We had another question which, the moon is one answer for the question, but it was, what are some of the clues that you can look for around these soul contracts in your birth chart?
Again, the South Node, Pluto, where those placements are and how they are aspecting or, interacting with other placements in your chart. And that's what I love about this, is that everyone's is different. So it's like you have this puzzle and you're putting all the pieces together. And if one piece is missing, you're not going to have a complete picture. But when you have all the pieces fit in the proper spaces, that's when you have the complete picture and have this deeper understanding.
Okay, love this. And when you're saying this, now Pluto's gotten brought up a few times here. So can you give us like a little nugget of when they're looking at Pluto, what kind of soul contracts are they finding there?
Again, it can be so varied. I mean, and so much of it depends on which house it's in. The house is going to tell you the area of life that Pluto is stirring up and wants you to go deep. Pluto is all about death and rebirth and the ultimate transformation. So what area of life is Pluto in for you? And then where is it transiting when you go through your major life experiences that can guide you to what might this mean from a soul contract perspective?
Yeah, 100%. I know in my own, going back into my life moments, Pluto's always a key player for the hardest, most transformational, and most, I don't think expansive is the right word, but the moments that led me into a new door or a new version of myself, right? It's Pluto's always active in those moments of when my soul took a turning point.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. Pluto is the ultimate wake-up call. And you can either choose to wake up and transform your life through these deep, deep, deep experiences or not. Yeah. So that goes back right to the beginning of choice. What are you choosing? And some people choose not to. And that's their choice. I do not believe that their soul wants them to choose that. And each Pluto experience is a wake-up call. It's like something is out of alignment in your life. Look at where you're out of alignment in your life. Where are you off path? Again, that's usually going to be evident if you look at where Pluto is in your chart at the time of those experiences. What houses is it? What house is it in? And what else is being impacted, or is it impacting? To find those threads, to be able to, again, put the puzzle pieces together to get the picture.
Yeah.
And then it's also, like you said, we don't know for sure. We don't know. But it's not going to hurt to follow that path that you are on, that you see when you put the pieces together. Mm-hmm. It's not going to hurt. It's kind of like, I know there are people who do not believe in the afterlife and that this life is it and that's it. You know what? They might be right. We don't know. I have said from the day my son left, I would rather live the rest of my life believing that I'm going to see him again and knowing that I'm going to see him again than to believe otherwise. Because to believe otherwise, then what kind of life am I going to have? And if I do get to the end of my life and there isn't anything, okay, well, so what? But at least I've lived more of a fulfilled life by believing than if I didn't.
Yeah, love that. And I think that's really powerful as well. And there's just this soul knowing, at some point, there's just a soul knowing where you're like, it's okay, because you just know.
I mean, you have experiences that you just cannot make up.
No.
And so much of that you can find in your chart.
Yes.
About there's no way I could have made this up. Mm-hmm. So there has to be something to all of this. And obviously, if people are listening to this summit, they believe that. But, again, understanding that everybody's on their own soul path. So the people who don't believe, you can have a different level of compassion for them and just remember they're on their own path and it's okay. We don't all have to believe the same thing, but don't let them affect you in your beliefs and your knowings, honor them. Again, that might be one of the relationships that you have to reconfigure and set some boundaries around and limit your, there's someone else very close in my life that I've known for over 20 years. He and I disagree completely on a certain topic. I don't talk to him about that anymore. When he starts talking about it, I used to engage in a conversation with him about it. I don't do it anymore. And eventually he moves on to something else. Because I'm not going to change him, but I can change myself and the way that I interact with him or don't around certain things.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us woke up more and more to that in the last 3 years of those healthy boundaries and how the soul contracts can challenge us to grow, and we make those choices. And it doesn't mean the end of relationships, but it may mean an adaptation to them.
Absolutely.
Okay. Does anyone have any final questions? Are we feeling good? We covered a lot today. Little sneaky things to look at, little we'll call them gumdrops. So take and follow when you guys leave this chat, plugging this into what now you've discovered about the South Node. Okay, now take what Lori's talked about and see, okay, where are some of these karmic contracts coming through? What does that feel like? And even just tapping into the knowing, right? The what Lori was saying about she just followed the knowing. Those are part of this. So how are those linking into your South Node? How are those linking into your North Node based on what you learned from Jess yesterday? And then, tapping into the first session around, well, okay, have you done this before? Are these lessons you need to liberate from? There's just so many questions that can come through here. Think about the questions you wrote down on the first day. Maybe some fears are coming up where it's yeah, this is an area I've had fears around. My Leo South Node brings up a lot of my personal fears. And when I tap into that, I see my repeated pattern based on those signatures. So love this. Lori, do you have anything to leave us off with today?
Just follow your intuition, follow things you're curious about are your intuition talking to you. And again, you never know what's going to happen in the future. So the more grounded you are in yourself and your knowing, the more you'll be able to navigate the unexpected things in life. And what Vika offers through its karmic is life-changing on so many levels. And it helped me put the loss of my son in a different context, but also now with what I'm navigating this year, it's helping me understand that, okay, something was meant to happen with the way things are aligned. And I know that it's not going to last forever. And so there is a light at the end of the tunnel. What am I going to choose to do when I'm here in this place until I get to the other side of it? And to me, it's the ultimate empowerment tool.
Choice and surrender. Yeah. Love this. Lori, thank you so much for your energy, your knowledge, your wisdom. I know everyone in here received so much, and everyone watching the replay will receive so much. So thank you guys for joining, taking the time out of your day to listen and be here with us. You don't even know what it means to Lori and I to have your energy here with us. I will post the replay so you can put comments, thoughts, questions that come through later in there. It'll be up for about 2 weeks. So use it and abuse it. And we will, link in with you in there. Okay.
Thank you all for being here. And thank you, Vika. I always love talking to you. And
always.
We could go on for days.
We could. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All of you. Thank you, Lori. We will be in contact soon. Goodbye, my loves.